Hey guys, this is totally my bad. I thought this started an hour later than it does, so we're gonna jump right into it. I'm getting the stream up now. My fault entirely. I thought this started an hour later than it did. This is my fault. I thought it started at 8 p.m. Turns out it starts at 7 p.m. So I probably knew that at some point yesterday, but I did not know that right now. And so we're right now just waiting to the stream to come up. If it wants to come up, that would be pretty great. That would be pretty great if the stream wants to come up on YouTube. I apologize for the last minute notice. I really thought I had more time. Thought I had more time here. And now it's not even working at all. That's great. That's just great, YouTube. Don't know why we're not working today, YouTube. You were working earlier, YouTube. Why isn't it working now? All right, hang on. Let me find this another way. I know how to get to this website. We're just going to miss a couple seconds of it. People's Forum. Live. There we go. Found it. Their link didn't work. Socialists love technology. All right, we're getting right into it. Apologize for the late start. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, they haven't even started yet. They have. Look at that. They haven't even started. You know what? I was right on time. I was on time. They haven't even started yet. I was on time. It is live, but you know what? All's well that ends well. All right. All's well. I thought I had another hour. Wow. It's been a long day, guys. It has been a long day. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna summon my husband, or I might possibly run downstairs. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to run downstairs and get a beer because I thought the rules are everyone needs to pay attention and be behaved. Okay. I'll be right back. It's hooked into the sound. Let's get the This is the People's Forum and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. This is, yeah, I was on time like a pro. I am a professional. All right? I am a professional. I'm gonna run downstairs and get my beer, and I'm just gonna let this play, and they'll get started when they get started, and I'll be right back and let everyone know I'm right on time. I was here on time, like a professional. Yeah, the rules are you better be able to explain the presentation by the end. Guys, here's the deal. Listen, the rules are we do this for research, okay? So please be behaved. Please act like adults. Please don't distract people in the chat. Please, 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 please. When I saw the RCA response to the Trump election, I knew I had to send it to you. Yeah, I appreciate that, number two. All right, guys, I'm gonna run downstairs and get a beer. I was on time. I'll be right back. Okay, I'll be right back. Hang on. All right, I'm back. Why are things frozen? Is it live and it's just not playing? What's going on? No, looks like it's just not playing. You watched part one of the crash course? I appreciate that. Was it just the YouTube chat frozen? Guys, if you just got here, welcome to Spy Stream. We are watching a live presentation from I just ran upstairs. Oh my gosh. We are watching a live presentation. Yeah, well, I think they're the ones that are late. Yeah, this is we're on socialist time today, guys. We've got the Party for Socialism and Liberation presidential candidate Claudia De La Cruz. Brian Becker is also with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Miriam, oh, that just moved. Oh, here we go. This is going to be more socialist than yesterday, guys. Yesterday was progressive. This is going to be more socialist. No sound yet. They're working with the People's Forum in New York City. That's also kind of a socialist group. Also some hippie progressives involved, but mostly socialist. Nah, I thought it was an hour later, Reagan. Okay, hang on. Oh, I just ran up a flight of stairs. And I am out of shape. You know what? It's been a long-ass day, guys. It has been a long day. I'm preparing for my road trip tomorrow. I was running around doing errands. Let me send this out to the Telegram group. I still have to pack. I was getting my knitting ready. And I really thought I had another hour. I did. I thought I had another hour. But they're going to be talking about why the Democratic Party failed because, guys, one of the things we know for sure is that socialist activist groups are going to use the failure of Kamala Harris to recruit. Okay, we're getting started. Shh. And I'm drinking a Shock Top Pretzel Wheat, which is an amazing mass-produced beer. Really good. I can't hear them.
Everyone here filling up our space, and to everyone who is joining us from across the country and across the world. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
At the People's Forum, we are a space for many things, for political education, for culture, for exchange, but our main responsibility is to convene those organizations and people from diverse backgrounds, from many different contexts, who are in struggle, and to create opportunities for us to discuss, debate, and exchange, and with the intention of coming out of those moments with deeper bonds of solidarity and more confidence for the struggle that comes ahead. So it is part of our urgent responsibility to be hosting this convening here today for this very important discussion. Donald Trump's decisive victory in these presidential elections marks the end of one of the most controversial presidential elections that we have ever seen in U.S. history. And it very importantly took place in the context of a devastating economic crisis, and at the same time, a year-long mass movement against the U.S.-Israeli genocidal war against the Palestinian people. And the combination of these conditions has exposed to millions of people the false democracy that is governing the United States today. In an attempt to confront the far-right agenda of the Republican Party, but without losing the sponsorship of their corporate and billionaire supporters, the Democratic Party turned their back on young people in this election campaign. They have turned their back on workers, on immigrants, on women, and they ran on a program that was designed to appeal to the right, essentially paving the way for the very dramatic rightward shift in the American ruling class that we are witnessing now. And so now Trump will enter the White House in January. We know from experiencing his previous administration, from everything that he's stated, and from the agenda of all of those who he has gathered around him, that he will most likely launch a full-scale attack on all of those rights that have been won through mass struggle over the past decades, and on top of it, that he will expand the U.S. war campaign that is raging across the world, leaving devastation and destruction and even genocide in its wake.
They think he's going to go to war with Iran.
He will drive forward an agenda that benefits the ultra-rich without the concessions that the Democratic Party, who is in the same way wedded to the needs of the billionaire class, but he is not fettered by the need to present a veneer of tolerance or equality. We, the workers, the social movements, the immigrant families, the young people, the anti-war movement, the working class as a whole, we are faced with many urgent questions. How will we respond to this change in the correlation of forces today? How will we confront this continual rise of the right? Will we be driven by fear and apathy or pessimism? Will we stay home? Or will we organize our forces and chart our own path forward? Will we follow the lead of the Democratic Party and mourn their loss? Or will we assert that we reject the billionaire agenda no matter which party is executing its orders? These are the burning questions that are on the minds of all thinking people, of all people in struggle, and being discussed all across the country today and in the past few days. What will we do? We are here to discuss what we need to do next, and we have already made one major first step. Just now, organizations representing diverse sections of the working class and progressive movement have already called for a mass mobilization on January 20, which will be the first day of Trump's administration, but more importantly, Martin Luther King Jr.'s day.
Wow! There it is. Mass mobilization.
We will be gathering across the country, and we will show the world, we will show the White House, we will show the billionaires, but more importantly, we will show our people in their billions across the world that we not only insist on defending our rights, but in fact, we are going to expand them. We have our own agenda to push forward, we have our own proposals, and we have an idea and a proposal on how to organize society around the well-being of the majority of humanity across the world. But this movement needs even more than that, and this moment needs even more than that. We need to develop a sharp and accurate analysis of the political realignment that is occurring before us today. And we also need to reach each other. We need to organize ourselves, and we need to organize together. We need to build mass consciousness that understands the urgency of an independent movement that is making not only defensive moves, but proposals for how to go forward and is taking up that cause. So tonight's conversation is one step in initiating many conversations to come. And we've gathered here a very powerful panel of people who represent essential sections of our society and have also behind them an accumulation of political experience that is going to help us navigate what comes next. So it is my honor to introduce to you our panel today.
Please do not do this.
We have former presidential candidate Claudia De La Cruz.
Remember, our goal is to listen and learn. It is not to own the libs. It is not to dunk on the libs. It is not to debunk. It is not any of those things.
National Day Laborer Organizing Network.
It is to listen and to learn.
Eugene Perrier of Breakthrough News. Miriam Osman from the Palestinian Youth Movement. And Brian Becker, founding member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
It just started, Chad.
So thank you all for being here again. Thank you to our amazing
Sorry,
speakers.
guys.
And with that, Claudia, I'd like to invite you to come on up.
Presidential candidate, Party for Socialism and Liberation.
How's everyone doing? All right. High morale? High discipline? That's right. So first and foremost, I want to thank folks for making it out here on a Friday night. It speaks volumes, the amount of people that are here, gathered in this space, and the amount of people that are logged on. Thousands of people actually logged on Zoom. It speaks to the commitment of our people to organize a fight back, not to go hide, not to go mourn, but to actually live out in the tradition of those that have come before us, that have built the opportunity for us to be here. And in that same way, we take on the responsibility for future generations. Is that not right? So I want to start with some reflections and experiences with the time that I have. I want to start by calling out our attention to what the Democrats and the liberal wing of the Democrats are doing, which is something that I think everyone who experienced 2016 has some sort of experience with, which is the blaming of poor communities and the scapegoating of working class sectors. They are saying we have to blame Black men, that we have to blame Latino men, that we have to blame immigrant communities, that we have to place judgment on those who didn't go out and vote. And it's important for us to remember, and it's important for us to intervene in moments when we hear this narrative saying that it's the spinelessness of the Democratic Party that has brought us here. We have to remind people that it is the incapability of the Democratic Party to accept responsibility and shift course that has brought us here. Trump won because the Democrats are mediocre. Trump won because they are not an opposition to Trump or anyone in the ruling class, and because they have failed and betrayed the working people of this country. So when they turn around and place blame on any sector of the working class, we must be really clear in letting them know that our people are not politically apathetic, that our people are not the ones to blame, that our people will never engage with a type of political system that does not engage with them and does not deliver in their promises. The Democrats have historically enabled the right wing, and they have done so with Trump as well. We saw a campaign where Kamala Harris wanted to be to the right of Trump. That is what we got. And of course, there are hundreds of millions of people who are unwilling to accept that because they know the levels of bullshit that is. While Trump won this election, we cannot pretend that the Democrats have not allowed and conducted attacks against the working class people for decades. If we think about the last 16 years, the Democratic Party had power for 12 of those years. And they didn't do anything, not a single thing, to protect or expand our rights. In fact, they sat back and watched how our rights were placed on a chopping block and said we can't do anything about it. So I ask you, if we have a political party that has the economic and political power to do something and chooses not to do so, are they not the ones to blame for the chaos that we're in? All of this to say that Trump is a symptom. He is the symptom. He is a product of the capitalist system. If we had time, I'd talk about how he is in WWE Hall of Fame. His very character is something that has been developed by the capitalist system. All the hatred, all the vileness, all the most disgusting elements of the capitalist system are expressed in Trump. But he, again, is only a symptom. The actual disease that we must work to destroy is capitalism and U.S. imperialism. We heard Karina and I, just in terms of reflection, Karina and I went across the country to 64 cities in 13 months. I'm sorry, my brain is not working as fast as it usually works. 64 cities in about 13 months. And we didn't just visit swing states. We visited all types of communities. And it has to do with our socialist politic and our socialist commitment that is a clear opposition to the capitalist system. We heard from communities that were organizing, were resisting, and were struggling. Communities that vouched to continue to do this work despite of whoever won the presidency and became the new tenant to the White House. This is not the attitude of the liberals or the Democrats. That is the attitude of working class people. We went and heard from communities that were organizing around livable wages. Workers of Amazon, fast food restaurants in the South that were denouncing the fact that the minimum wage in this country has not been raised since 2009. And they are expected to live off crumbs in a moment where the prices on essential goods continue to increase. We went to communities that were abandoned by both the Republicans and the Democrats, and they were still making a life in places that seemed like ghost towns. We went to communities that were organizing against police brutality and mass incarceration and the emergence of cop cities all across this country. Understanding that under Democratic charge, the number of people, civilians, unarmed, that were killed by police increased. Over 1,000 people in this country were murdered by police in 2023 under the Democrats. Cop cities emerged under the Democrats. Attacks on unionized and organized labor increased as well. There are cities in the South, there are cities in the Midwest where local politicians and state politicians tell corporations, you get a tax break if you build your companies here. And you know what's better? You don't need to worry about organized labor. That is the type of society, and that is the type of country, and that is the type of democracy that we are living in. And so when we have communities that are organizing and standing on principle, like young people all across this country, organizing in the universities, standing against the administration and standing against police repression in defense of life, in defense of our siblings in Palestine and across the Middle East. And they are willing to take the risk of anything that comes, any backlash, any breaking of their skull by these policemen and women. That tells us the spirit of our people. It shows us the spirit of our struggle. We heard with such huge disgust and anger from communities that have an understanding that we have a responsibility in the belly of the beast to end the U.S. war machine. People who understand that it's inconceivable for the United States of America to have $1 trillion allocated for the military. When the gutting of education, the gutting of healthcare, the closing of clinics is happening. When people cannot afford or access childcare. Our people are awake. They know, they feel it in their guts every day. And they're waiting for a glass of clean water. They're waiting for an alternative. They're waiting for orientation. They're waiting for an instrument. And that is not going to stop with Trump. In fact, it's going to become heightened with Trump. And so the question is, will we stand by and watch him unleash his agenda? Will we stand by and watch him unleash all sorts of attacks to historically marginalized communities? Or will we have the spine that the Democrats and the ruling class do not have? People have been in struggle, people have been organizing, people have been mobilizing against attacks on several fronts for many decades. Where we are today, even when we think about the reemergence of the anti-imperialist, anti-war movement in response to the genocide in the Middle East that has extended. It's not only Palestine now. We're talking about Lebanon. We're talking about Yemen. We're talking about they're moving towards Iran. There has been a reemergence of the anti-imperialist struggles that came before us. What will we do? That's the huge question. And I'm very glad to see the amount of people that are in this space, the amount of people that are connected, because that's the response to the question. We're willing to show up. Karina and I saw a lot of folks in struggle, a lot of folks organizing, educating, mobilizing in the smallest spaces, in the biggest spaces. And what I think is missing, and what has been missing, and what has been intentionally broken and dismembered by the capitalist system is our ability to build a mass movement. A mass movement that can actually bring all these different sections of struggle together. A mass movement that is centered in working class socialist proposals. I think it's important, to remind and reaffirm what we said in the campaign trail. The real divide is not between the Democrats and the Republicans. In fact, there are one party with two names, as W.E.B. Du Bois said. One party with two names, two factions of the ruling class. The divide is not Trump or Harris. They had the same donors. And my grandmother taught me that whoever pays the bills get to choose and decide what the agenda will be. She said it in another context, but it still makes sense. So we know that that's not the divide. The real divide in this country is the capitalist, the wealthiest minority in society that imposes itself with its hegemony of violence against us, the majority of people in this country. And I want to remind us that there has nothing that we have ever received from the benevolence of the ruling class. We've always had to fight. And if there's something that the Democratic Party has been very effective in doing, is intervening in our ability to build people power. Did you hear that? The Democratic Party has been effective in intervening in our ability to build people power. They have political organization, and they tell us that we don't need it. But they have Congress, they have the Senate, they have the FBI, the CIA, they have all types of PACs, they have the Pentagon, they have philanthropy. You keep going down that list. They are organized. And so I'll bring Malcolm X into the space and say, we are not outnumbered. We are out organized. And for as long as we have the ability to understand what this moment calls for and actually build it, we have all the potential to win. History teaches us that only the people in organized struggle can save the people. The ruling class will never do that for us. They are not placed in positions to do that for us. So when Trump releases his agenda, which is going to be an agenda for the ruling class, we need to be ready. We need to be ready to put forth what our agenda is, what the working class agenda is, and what we are willing to defend and protect and fight for. And the people will mobilize themselves to that proposal. So I want to thank you again for coming here. I look forward to the Q&A. I'm going to go back to drinking coffee because obviously I need it. Thank you all.
Wow, full house.
Everyone who watches my content regularly knows why this is. Please no dunking on the list.
Space as
we have covered this ad nauseum.
Was
if you're new here, that's fine, but we do not dunk on the libs. We listen and we learn. They answer this question all the time. They're allowed to engage in capitalism to overthrow the system.
I realized that it was supposed to be for a better life. But what I face 25 years plus.
And the fact that you don't know that means you don't understand your enemy and you need to learn. Because this is like 101 level stuff. 101.
Couldn't find a stable job because we were undocumented. That I couldn't go to college because I didn't have papers. And we have dreams. My brother is still with a DACA. And he's facing probably deportation after these elections. So I've been organizing since then. And now I organize with the National Day Labor Organizing Network, which is a organization across the country that with more than 70 plus worker centers. And what we do is we organize from the bottom up with different type of workers, and especially day laborers, domestic workers, and actually low-income families as well. What we have seen after probably two months ago was that it was a lot of fear, and visiting day labor corners across the country was that people was super scared what was going to happen if Trump wins. After Trump wins, we have couple calls, Zoom calls, and workers actually were scared as the maximum level. And we were thinking, what is that we're going to do? And I remember Pedro, who came into this call, and he was the one who mentioned we need to start organizing for real. We have to stop saying el pueblo salva al pueblo, and it's just bullshit. The people say the people, and it's just bullshit. It's in the slogan. What is that we're going to do for real? And we were in the middle of a call with almost 100 plus people, and we start thinking about it. How the hell we're gonna do this? And what does that mean when we say the people save the people, or the el pueblo salva al pueblo? And we make a decision that it's about time to organize local communities and comités populares, popular committees across the country. We decide to organize popular assemblies across the country. And then around 1 month, we organized almost 25 assemblies across the country. Now we have, thank you. And now we have almost 45 plus committees, leading by workers, leading by undocumented people, leading by people that really are the directly impacted, and they're ready to work. We're working also closely with MST in Brazil, and we are also preparing to do political education and among of other things. But with that said, what does this mean about creating popular committees? And what we want to do with this is creating committees in different localities with different issues of people that are really are facing this injustice system, and that are facing things like deportation and detention. What they are proposing with Project 2025 is basically 4 things. Number 1, terminating all the deferred actions. TPS, DACA, DALE, which is a deferred action for labor enforcement. They want to terminate also any type of naturalization of undocumented people, which is like when you marry with someone that is undocumented and you have a baby, they want to terminate that naturalization as well, which is stupid. And Stephen Mueller just posted something today that he's going to do that in a turbo fast manner the first 100 days. When Trump says that he's going to deport more than 11 million undocumented immigrants, he's not playing. He's really going to go against it. The second thing that they want to do is create local communities and local programs like 287Gs, or secure communities, that allows local police to be acting as immigration agents. The other thing that they want to do is, this is something that is really going to affect a lot of workers. They want to amplify E-Verify, which is it is a system they're gonna detect you when you go to work. They're gonna detect you if you have papers or not, if you're undocumented or not. So that means that a lot of people that are already working with the way that you have to be able to work, they're gonna be deported, or they're gonna be detained. They want to also implement almost 100,000 beds every day in detention centers, and that's gonna happen just if you create inhumane laws, and with local communities and local police in local communities, right? So what we are trying to do is that proposal is basically creating local committees, comités populares, which is what we call in Spanish, comités populares, or popular committees that organize by themselves, that they have their own way, and they want to think about what is that we're going to do, and they choose. And organizing workers, they choose where we're going, and themselves and by themselves, and no one is going to tell them what to do. I think that most of the committees has lost the belief and the hope in the Democratic Party or in the Republican Party. I think by now it is time to organize, and we just have us and we don't have no one else. Thank you so much.
Well, good evening, everybody. Hopefully people can hear. You can hear in the back? Okay, you just got to make sure. How y'all feeling, all right?
He's with a socialist news channel called Breakthrough News.
There's a lot of things I think we've all been thinking about. But one of the things I used to often say before the election to people about the rhetoric, let me actually get this water, just in case. The rhetoric of Kamala Harris's campaign, it was always, we won't go back, we won't go back, we won't go back. And, fine, we certainly don't want to go back from the things that we've won, oppressed people, working class people. But so much of what that discourse left out, I think speaks to a large degree to why they lost. Because you keep talking about what we might lose, but never about how we got it in the first place. And in fact, you'd think that everything that had ever come from civil rights to women's rights to labor rights was just handed down on high from some politician. That people were just sitting around somewhere in squalor and oppression and exploitation, had no idea what to do, no organization, nothing at all. And then all of a sudden, some benevolent politician came and ran a campaign funded by rich people and gave poor people things that they really wanted. And then they were thankful and grateful for it for the rest of their lives. That's how change happens. That it was Lyndon Johnson, not Martin Luther King. That it was FDR, not the sit-down strikes. That it was Abraham Lincoln, not the slaves who rebelled. So the number one question we have to ask ourselves, people say, what is to be done, is what will we do collectively? Many people talk a lot about Frederick Douglass. There's no struggle, there's no progress. Good speech. Same speech, one of the things he said, and I thought it was interesting, find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. So Trump has many plans, and we can talk about his plans. We will talk about his plans. But he can really, truly only implement all of his plans if we decide to let him. I mentioned Frederick Douglass in that speech, not by accident. It was a speech that was given in 1857. So not that long before the Civil War, at the height of the struggle against slavery. And at that time, there was something called the Fugitive Slave Act. Bipartisan law, by the way, was passed. And it said that any slave that ran away could be taken back to their master anywhere in the country. And that a slave master could hire a bounty hunter to go anywhere at any time and bring them back. And not only were they bringing fugitive slaves back, they were oftentimes targeting abolitionists to sell them into slavery. There was no legal recourse. This was the law, the federal law. If you were a slave and you escaped, they could come get you and take you back. You had no legal case to make. But millions of people all across the northern and western parts of the United States at that time decided that they couldn't live like that. They couldn't live with that. Whether or not the law said one thing, there was a higher law, that they had to fight against slavery no matter what the risk. So they formed things called vigilance committees all across the country that said that when a fugitive slave is brought before the bar into the courthouse, we will go to the courthouse and we will physically resist the imposition of returning them back. That we will physically remove them from the courthouse if we have to and put them on the Underground Railroad and send them to Canada. And maybe we won't succeed. Maybe we'll be beaten. In many cases, these were serious tussles. People were pulling out guns. Maybe we'll even be killed. But we would rather risk our lives than allow our formerly enslaved brothers and sisters to just be taken back like we never said anything or like we don't care. And this became a sensation all across the country. And in many cities, like Springfield, Massachusetts, where the Vigilance Committee was formed by a guy named John Brown, once they formed it, not one slave was ever taken out of there ever again. So before I make some more remarks, I have to say I'm so honored to have the opportunity to speak after our brother Jorge and the work that Indalon is doing, because we have seen Trump reaffirm his situation yesterday on NBC News. He said we're going to do mass
literally not what he's talking about. You
deportations.
need to listen and
Well,
you need to learn, because you do not
You think for
understand
every
what's going on
one
right
of
now.
the
I'm
12
sorry.
to 15 million undocumented people, if that's the number, many of us have friends, family members, co-workers who are undocumented. So that's tens of millions of more people. So you can say it's scary, and it is scary. You can say it's odious, it is odious. But when they start bringing the trucks around to round people up, you can also say, I'm going to step outside of my door, and I'm going to link arm with my neighbors, and if you're going to throw them out, you better throw me out with them, because we're standing together no matter what. So my basic message is, don't give up what you got for nothing. Just because the Democrats didn't do anything, just because Kamala didn't win, doesn't mean that we can't do anything and that we can't win. I'll just say a few more things and I'll get out your way. You know, we also have to note, and thank you, Claudia, for laying this out, I think, well. You know, the whole idea that this is, you know, democracy versus authoritarianism, Democrats or Republicans, that's not what it is. What it is capitalism versus the survival of humanity.
That's it, right there.
The Trump
It's capitalism.
agenda is an ultra-capitalist smash and grab raid on everyday people's lives. I mean, you look at this election. 150 billionaire families spent about $2 billion on the election.
He just said what the enemy is. Did you catch it, or were you listening for fucking your conservative bullshit talking points?
8 of them
Stop
were Trump
dunking on the
supporters.
libs.
Some of them
and
were giving over
listen.
$100 million. Now, do you think they were giving that money out of the goodness of their heart? No, they obviously were not. They're expecting something, and that something is a lot of money, because they know that Trump has already promised to give them hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars in tax cuts. That's both corporate and personal. So you're getting more profit from the business, and you're taking more of that money home at the expense of average everyday people and those programs. You know, he's saying, well, you know, we're going to have no taxes on overtime. Certainly sounds good, but what he is not telling you is that the plan of all his friends is actually to make you get paid
That's
less
not
money
what is going
in overtime.
on.
That's actually
at
Trump's
all,
plan, is to
in
reduce
any
the amount of
way.
money you can get paid in
Stop
overtime. So he's saying no tax
talking
on
and start
the overtime, because he knows it won't matter because
listening.
you're making less money anyway. Every regulation you could think of, he's like, we will get rid of that regulation. Of course, the climate crisis is the number we know, drill, baby, drill. But every union thing, I mean, listen, the Supreme Court is already doing Project 2025. They might get rid of a lot of the union protections anyway. But what they don't get rid of, Trump is going to come for that too. Environmental protections, labor protections.
Thank
I mean,
you
anything
two,
you
ladies.
can
I
think of, from
appreciate
making
you.
sure someone doesn't die from heat stroke on the job to slipping and falling. Like, they're going to try to get rid of all of that. So for business people, this is fantastic. This is the best case scenario. And of course it's the best case scenario. This is why they need Trump. Because at the end of the day, as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said over 40 years ago, capitalism has outlived its usefulness. At an increasing degree, even if people don't have the right name or nomenclature or ideological box to put it in, people can see something is very wrong. That in the richest country in the history of countries, how is it that people are sleeping outside, don't have a roof over their head, going to bed hungry? You know, the mainstream media, which claims to tell you things.
Which I knew was going to happen. I
claims
just
to tell
this
you
members
things,
only.
amazingly to me, never looks at data being collected by the U.S. Census Bureau, not Eugene Puryear, the U.S. Census Bureau, saying that 155 million people in this country are having at least a little trouble making their ends meet week to week, not month to month, week to week, not paycheck to paycheck, week to week. That 21 million people are going hungry at least sometime, week to week. They say socialism is bad because you got a ration card. In capitalism, paycheck is your ration card. And a lot of people are on starvation rations.
Just
So when
confirm
you
they're
look
gonna
at
do
the
ration
situation
cards,
that we
by the
are
way.
in, people are rising up. Ferguson, Baltimore, Minneapolis, the UAW, the Teamsters. I mean, everywhere you look, the labor movement, the streets, the climate movement, Standing Rock, Line 3. Like I could probably stand here and list 100 things that have been happening where people who are exploited and oppressed have been standing up in powerful ways that have shocked and electrified the world. So in that context, the very rich understand that they can actually not really convince that many people that somehow the agenda of the billionaires is really the agenda of us, of average people. So there's only one thing they can try to do, and that is to impose it on us with the most authoritarian police state, whatever you want to call it, that they can put together and get into the office, and that's Trump. So this is the agenda of the ultra-rich, to impose upon you the destruction of your life, your livelihood, and the planet that we all live on.
The police state means the capitalist state, guys. It's not about the police, it's about capitalism.
And they don't care. You know, it's like, what's the Matt Damon movie, Elysium, where all the rich people go into space? Well, Elon Musk is saying, let's go to space. And he's the #1 richest person in America and a big Trump donor. So they already planning. It's not just Hollywood. They're saying we're going to destroy the earth. We're going to destroy your life. We're going to use AI to put you out of work. And then when you get so mad that we can't stop you from rising up and killing us all, we're just going to go to space and control you with robots down here. I mean, it sounds wild, but this is like what they're actually planning. This is why it's 36 cop cities. This is why there's critical infrastructure laws in every state saying you can't protest pipelines. This is why you have RICO charges on activists, because they know they're not going to do anything to solve people's basic problems, that more and more people are waking up to what's going on, that people are getting increasingly organized and increasingly militant and bold and willing to fight back. So they have to find some way to try to beat you to death over the head to stop you, because they know at this point you see that the game is up. So the question in front of us is, what are we going to do? Are we going to be as bold as the abolitionists? I hope so. Are we going to recognize that so much of what's put it, you know, just with the whole thing leading up to the election, all these people, don't vote for a third party, don't do this, don't do that, support Democrats, you're wasting money, you're wasting this. I don't even want to get into it. You remember it. They said the same thing then. In the 1840s and the 1850s, when people started stepping out against slavery, people said, you're crazy. Why would you do this? If you don't support the two major parties, you're setting us back. You know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they were the most hated, hunted, rebuked, scorned, prices on their heads, killed, murdered, jailed people out there. Now everyone will turn around and say, oh, we love them, and it's great. And we'll name a street, and we'll put up a statue, and I'll dedicate a building at a college. But they don't want to talk about the fact that at a certain point, they were considered the outcasts of society. So we do have to move from the margins to the center. We're not that weak, but I know we're not as powerful as we'd like to be. But there's no way to get from point A to point B until we actually set up a political North Star of who we are, what we want to be, and where we want this country and this world to go. I'm wrapping up now.
You know nothing, and you need to stop fucking talking and start listening.
And a plan,
you don't
can
know
win,
anything.
But you can't win without organization. So I personally am wary, because we have to be serious, real, and clear-eyed. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful at this room. I'm hopeful at the thousands of people online. I'm hopeful at the millions of people who have already been in struggle over the past 12 months. I'm hopeful that if we can get organized in a way that we haven't been organized yet before, we will be able to destroy the entrenched power structures that are taking us down, destroying our people, and destroying our planet. So that's what is to be done. That's what's next. And I look forward to being in the fight with you here today. Thank you so much.
How many times have I had to interrupt the fucking live speaker because people in the chat are talking about debunking it only in the libs? Listen to what these fucking people are saying. I asked you nice yesterday. I'm not going to fucking ask nicely anymore.
Thank you so much.
And I'm about to start banning people who don't listen.
But thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight.
Unbelievable. We do this every fucking time.
Made clear on this panel by everybody. The Democrats have no one to blame but themselves for Trump's victory. And their position on Palestine, their refusal to end the genocide, played a major role in their failure. For over a year, this genocide has continued, and it's been funded by a Democratic administration, by the Biden-Harris administration. And for over a year, our movement for Palestine has mobilized millions, literally millions in this country, week after week, into the streets, demanding an end to the genocide, demanding an arms embargo, demanding an end to the Israeli occupation. And all year, we've also chanted, "In November, we'll remember." We chanted that and we meant it. And why did we chant that? It's not because we were under any illusions that we could appeal to the consciousness of the Democratic Party or that the Democrats are somehow our friends. We chant that because we know that when we mobilize and that when we unite in our demands and our promises, we demonstrate our power. And that's what makes the ruling class really afraid. So for over a year, our movement has been doing the long-term work of transforming consciousness and building political power. Let's remember again that the Biden administration had every opportunity to end this genocide. It's their position, not ours, that's entirely unreasonable. The solutions are right there within their grasp. They have the ability to implement them, but they refuse. They don't have the will to do so. And rather than respond to our demands, they chose to move the Democratic Party further and further to the right, and in the process, they lost themselves the election. That's what happened.
They think they moved the Democrats
What
to the
we
right.
need to be
and they
clear
did,
about
actually.
is that it's actually a very simple thing that we're demanding. An arms embargo is a reasonable and simple policy. Instead of seeing how reasonable this is, the Democrats showed the people of the United States who they are really accountable to. This has been made clear to millions across the country now. And what's been made clear to us who've been fighting in the streets for Palestine is that the White House, the weapons manufacturers, they have a shared objective. They have a shared objective. It's not that one is controlling the other. And that objective is 100% against the interests of the Palestinian people. It's 100% against the interests of the working class in the United States.
These are not Democrats.
And
These
the
are
interests
socialists.
and objectives of the White House, whether under a Democratic or Republican administration, it doesn't matter. The interests and objectives of the weapons manufacturers, they are the interests of the ruling class. And the ruling class's objective, what has been made clear this entire year, is that their objective is to profit from dominating the world economy.
Because I don't believe you.
So to put it another way, what this movement has clarified for millions of people is that the project of the entire US ruling class is the project of US imperialism. It's that simple. It's about dominating the entire world economy for the interests of the capitalist class. And I mean the entire capitalist class, not just the weapons manufacturers. So that's what we're up against. And this clarity about what we're up against is what we mean when we say that a key achievement of our movement for Palestine has been the development of a mass anti-imperialist consciousness in the United States. And it's also been the training of thousands of anti-imperialist organizers who've been transformed through this struggle. And for people whose consciousness has been transformed, for all of us in this room, there's no turning back. There's no going back from that. Now, the occupation of Palestine has been ongoing for over 100 years. And the movement for Palestine has been growing all that time, both in Palestine and in the diaspora. And slowly, the world has been waking up to that reality over the course of history. But what happened last year is that Palestine was propelled onto the international stage in a way that we've never seen before. And what our movement has been able to do under those conditions is through organized and united efforts with strong leadership in the movement has been to respond to that by turning what used to be a minority position in this country into the position of the majority. Support for Palestine is now a majority position in this country. Millions of people in this country correctly identify this as a US genocide. And the outrage that organically brought millions into the streets has been transformed over the course of a year by our movement. And we can't take this transformation for granted. We can't take for granted that people would develop anti-imperialist consciousness from this struggle. That doesn't happen by itself. Again, it took a movement. It takes leadership, it takes unity, and it takes political clarity. And that's what we've been able to provide. And the reality is that our intervention, it makes so much sense because it's just common sense. People are receptive to it. It speaks to the political reality in this country, which is that 69% of people want a new system. They want a new economic system. 67% of people, of all voters, whether Democrat or Republican, wanted a ceasefire. So again, it's more than reasonable to want to stop a genocide. It's more than reasonable to want to meet the needs of people in this country. And it's more than reasonable to want to prioritize people over profit. These are reasonable demands. This growing and now irreversible anti-imperialist consciousness, which is, again, a critical achievement of our movement, is going to be the basis of our united efforts moving forward. And our movement has also created clarity around two other things, and they can't be separated from the issues that have been on people's minds over the course of this election season. The first is that our movement has shattered any illusions that people might have had that we live in an actual democracy. People don't believe this anymore. Rightfully so. And what's a good example that we can point to this?
When
the
they say
majority of
democracy, they
Americans
mean
don't want
socialism.
war. The majority of Americans want to end the genocide in Palestine. There's polls that show this. 61% of Americans want an arms embargo. That's almost 2/3 of the country. That's a massive amount. So if public opinion has no impact on the foreign policy of the United States, how can we call this a democracy? That's what our movement has been able to show, and what people have so clearly been showing by showing up in the streets week after week. The second thing that our movement has really built clarity around is that the US war machine is not just a war on the Palestinian people. It's not just a war of people abroad, or on people abroad that feel far away. It's a war on working class people here in the United States. And Claudia talked about this so clearly, about the fact that the issue on most people's minds in this election was how to make ends meet, all across the country. So to give an example of this, in 2019, US schools collected $5.6 billion from students for school lunch. This is ridiculous. Why do kids have to pay for lunch? And not just that, not only do kids have to pay for lunch, kids and families, but also 30 million kids can't even afford school lunch. They go hungry. While this is happening, the price of a single US aircraft carrier that was recently sent to the Middle East, the price of this aircraft carrier, let me get this right, was $6.8 billion. One aircraft carrier. More than enough to pay for everyone's school lunch. How is this justifiable? The answer is that it's not. What is clear is that we live in a country that is so committed to the ruling class's project of imperialism that it will
means
let
capitalism.
Americans go hungry. It will let Americans go off to endless wars and die. And it will let people in Gaza burn alive. And then they'll have the audacity to turn around and try to defend this system. That's what has become clear. Our movement has built a consciousness that connects concretely the foreign policy of the United States to our domestic policy. And again, this is the consciousness that's going to allow us to build a united front under Trump and is going to be the basis of our power. So Jorge and Eugene spoke a little about what we can expect from
this is true.
Trump's
this is a really
policy domestically.
We'll talk about that at the end.
I want to talk a little bit about what we can expect in terms of foreign policy. What we can expect is a continuation of US war crimes. That's the simple way of putting it. Trump has made it clear in the media that he's giving Netanyahu a green light to do whatever he wants. He's told him that he should, quote, get the job done in Gaza. Get the job done, meaning to continue the genocide. And when it comes to Iran, to Yemen, to Iraq, to Israeli escalation generally in the region, it's highly unlikely that Trump is going to push for any kind of restraint, no matter how superficial it is, like what we've seen under the Biden administration. We are the ones that are going to have to force that restraint. And organizing is how we're going to do it. Organizing is how we're going to build our power. And how we organize, how we bring more and more people into our struggle is going to be the deciding factor moving forward. We have to continue to develop the mechanisms and the organizations that are capable of long-term struggle, because we know that this is going to be a long fight. We have to continue to build this movement that has provided people with so much political clarity. The movement that's been able to identify for people that this is a fundamentally undemocratic
more
system.
At the end, Jay.
A system built for the
glad you're
ruling
here.
class, not for the people.
Don't mind the yelling. It's
And our
not directed
task
at you.
is to draw more and more people into our struggle against this shared enemy. The shared enemy of the
I'll give
Palestinian
you
people,
multiple resources
the
at
shared
the end,
enemy
Jay.
of the working people of the world, and the shared enemy of working people in the United States. Our task is to build power. Our task is to unify our efforts, because this is the only thing that's going to give us the force to transform this system.
It's okay if you agree with them on the
So
anti-war
when
stance.
millions of people are
That doesn't
feeling
make
like
you
the
a
world is
socialist.
on the brink of collapse,
It's one of the
when
things they
millions
have
feel
right.
like no one in power is doing the right thing, or anything that makes sense, really, what has happened this year is that they've found a home in our movement. They've come out to the streets. They've flyered every inch of their neighborhoods. They've come to weekly volunteer meetings, reorganized their schedules, and they've joined organizations. And if you're listening to this and you haven't done so yet, if you're listening to this because you feel uncertain about the future, then we invite you to join us. It's imperative that you join us, because this fight is going to take all of us together. Thank you.
Very excellent speakers and presentations on a range of issues.
Well,
And
yeah, this is actually a really good point,
I think
Rottweiler.
the reason
That's a
there's
really
so
good
many
point.
people in this room,
He
and
started
the
the
reason
Party
there
of
are
Socialism and
thousands of
Liberation.
people online right now, is everyone has a great sense, I think, that we are approaching an epic moment. Perhaps an epic struggle, the outcome of which will determine the fate of the country, and perhaps the fate of the world, and the fate of our future. And I think when we look at what happened in the election and the outcome and the impact it has on progressive people, and I think it's probably true for everyone who's in this room, there is a sense of great foreboding that the most right-wing element in the ruling class, the most dangerous force within the U.S. capitalist imperialist establishment
Oh,
has taken the reins of power. And you might have said in 2016, Donald Trump is an anomaly. It's a weird sort of idiosyncratic development. Like, who would have possibly expected Donald Trump to become president of the United States? But here we are 8 years later, and not only did Trump win, Trump won the popular vote. He not only won the Electoral College, he won the popular vote.
they're self-funded for the most part. It's
And
not
it wasn't
Soros.
just Trump.
It's never
The
Soros.
Republicans
They all lie about
took
that.
the Senate. They have the House of Representatives. They have
We can
a
talk more about that
unified
later.
government under the leadership of the Republican Party, which is now Donald Trump's party. So you cannot say at this point in 2024 that we've encountered some freakish, weird anomaly. That's not true. And I think that we have to deeply appreciate what's happened. Now, it's not that Donald Trump's electoral vote, his popular vote, went up from 2020. It's about the same. It's about 74 million or so. In the 2020 election, Joe Biden got 81 million votes. Donald Trump has won the popular vote by a significant margin because the votes for the Democratic Party candidate have gone down by about 14 million. That's a profound difference. So when we talk about the fact that the Democratic Party has nobody to blame but itself, that's on a surface level obviously true. When Biden came into office in 2020, I mean, and let's face it, the only reason people voted for Joe Biden was that his name was not Donald Trump. I mean, nobody could look at Joe Biden and say, yeah, that's the guy I want to lead the country. That's not what motivated people. It's that he was not Donald Trump. That was his sole calling card. But he not only won the White House with a very significant margin, 7 million more votes than Trump, but the Democrats had the House of Representatives and they had the Senate. They could do, in fact, whatever they wanted to do because they controlled both branches of
Yes,
the
we'll talk about
legislative
that at the
part
end.
of the government and the White House, the executive branch. They could do whatever they wanted to do. So let's assume they did do whatever they wanted to do.
This is the launch of
What
their
did they do?
organization.
They provoked a war, an unnecessary war with Russia that's taking place in Ukraine. They carried out the genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Netanyahu didn't make them do it. He didn't make them send 2,000-pound bombs that the Biden-Harris, Blinken administration knew were being dropped on 10 cities, dropped on people as they lined up for food. Netanyahu didn't make them do it. They wanted to do it. They did it because they want Israel to win the war against the resistance in the Middle East. That was their decision. They said they were going to provide economic relief for working class people. Well, what did Biden-Harris do? They withdrew the COVID relief programs like the $300 per child, per family that started during COVID. Now, according to the U.S. government's own statistics, that one decision to send $300 per child into each family reduced childhood poverty in the United States by 50%.
Oh, come on.
In a year. 1 out of 5 children lives in poverty. And the poverty numbers are ridiculous. You could
I don't
triple the
believe that for
poverty
one red
level
second.
numbers and you'd
$300.
still be in poverty. So they withdrew this program and they doubled childhood poverty. That meant it was a policy choice to make kids poor, to make it hard for them to eat. They didn't have to do it. They did it because they wanted to do it. Nobody made them do it. They ended the moratorium on evictions. Nobody made them do it. The only person from the whole U.S. Congress, 435 members of these opportunist politicians who could have stood up and said something about the moratorium on evictions.
Welcome, Stu.
Only Cori Bush stood up, and she did a hunger strike at the Capitol building by herself, and some of us who joined her.
Party for
And they
Socialism
took away
and
the
Liberation,
moratorium
Stu.
on evictions, and there was a flood of evictions. They could do whatever they wanted to do. You know, when Donald Trump was president, and George Floyd was killed on May 25th, 2020, Minneapolis went into rebellion. Tim Walz was the governor of Minnesota. On June 1st, you'll all remember that sort of moment where Donald Trump came across Lafayette Park. They violently dispersed those of us who were out in the streets, and I'd say we collectively were out in the streets during those days. They pepper sprayed people. They used so-called non-lethal or less than lethal weapons so that Trump could go across Lafayette Park and stand in front of St. John's Church and hold the Bible. That was right after a conference call with the governors, including Tim Walz, and Trump praised Tim Walz for doing what Trump insisted should be done, which is to use maximum force against people protesting against the murder of George Floyd. That was an audio tape that the Democrats were proud of 1 month ago when it was released, because they said, Donald Trump says that Tim Walz is a far-left communist, but this proves that Tim Walz is not, because Donald Trump was praising him for using police violence against protesters in Minneapolis 5 days after George Floyd was killed. The Democrats were proud of it.
So it makes sense that they be Maoists.
So what happened after Trump had this conference call and told all the governors who were nodding and going along, let's make the cities of America the new battlefield. He said, we're going to dominate the battlefield. And the battlefield was the cities and towns of the United States, and he wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act. We all know this because we were all of us are old enough, I think, to know that that's what actually happened 4 years ago. And what happened when Trump did that? 35 million people in the United States went into the streets in the biggest nationwide uprising against racism in American history.
Stu, do you know who funds the Party of Socialism and Liberation?
The Democrats were going along with Trump, including Muriel Bowser in D.C., a Democratic mayor. They were imposing the curfews. They were sending the cops against the people. But the people, instead of being afraid, people were afraid at first. When you were getting hit with tear gas after tear gas after tear gas, people ran. Then they started running a little more slowly. And then they started picking up the tear gas and throwing it back at the pigs. They got braver and braver. That's what happened. And that was a rebellion led by black working class young people. That's who led that nationwide rebellion. And there were white people there and Latino people and Asian people and Arab Americans. It was a massive rainbow coalition of resistance led really by a section of the African American working class community that took matters into their own hands. That's what actually happened. And then you could see, like, the Pentagon started renaming military bases. They started taking down statues. The NFL, the billionaire said, yeah, let's all take a knee. Like, all of these reactionary racists, moribund racists were like, no, we're with the movement. What changed was not the Democrats. It was the uprising of the people.
Though. Party for Socialism and Liberation
let's learn this lesson.
So I think
right now, I think
Maoists.
a lot of people are
but we're not assuming this is CCP funded. That we don't have evidence for that, so we don't say that.
Political realignment because Trump won the popular vote.
We don't say shit without evidence, do we?
And the Republicans control both houses. Well, people have a right to be.
I am open to the idea that the Party for Socialism and Liberation may have funding that I don't know about. In general, most socialist groups are self-funded, but there's something about this group. They've been doing a lot of stuff this year, and so there might be funding that I don't know about. And they are Stalinists, which means they're Maoists, which means it could be coming from the CCP, but we don't know that.
The political realignment in the country, the election of Reagan.
Thanks, Alcon.
Reagan's election was, in a way, the end of the 1960s, an end of the progressive era, the beginning of the fight back by the bourgeoisie that said, we're going to stop the communist winning streak. We're going to roll back civil rights.
That's what they're
we're going to
talking
roll
about.
back women's rights. We're going to push gay people back into the closet. That was the Reagan era. And it was a political realignment.
Well, this is
Kamala
why I'm saying
Harris
that we need to
ran
actually investigate
in
it. We don't know.
2024 as a Reagan Democrat. I mean, she was on the podium with Liz Cheney. 20 years ago, all the Democrats said Dick Cheney, he's the worst monster in the world. Only second place to George W. Bush. Now the Democrats and Kamala Harris are campaigning with Dick Cheney, with Liz Cheney. George W. Bush, because his name is not Donald Trump, his approval ratings among Democrats has gone to 54%. The Democrats have adopted the party of Reagan. In fact, they criticized Trump for taking the Republicans away from being the party of Reagan. So, guess what? The people in the United States do not look at a Reagan Democratic Party as a genuine alternative to the ultra-rightism of Donald Trump.
Fascinating.
That's not an alternative.
Thanks, Stu.
So what are we going to do? Our slogan says, what is to be done? Of course, that's from Lenin. And Lenin was, what is to be done meant, let's build an organization. Let's build a party or parties. Let's get organized. The what is to be done was written in 1902, and it was helping the working class and the poor in Russia to get organized. In that sense, that's what we should be doing. But there's another side to the question of what is to be done.
They say that word all the time.
And that is what is to not be done.
You don't watch Socialists, so you
What
don't
do
know
we
that.
don't
They
want to
say it
do?
all the time.
What don't we want to do? What is not to be done? I would say let's learn the lesson of the first Trump administration. When Trump came into office, so many people went to the airports because he said we're going to ban Muslims from coming into the country. Massive protests. On Inauguration Day, we outnumbered Trump supporters. There were so many protests. This was the anti-Trump resistance. But what happened? The Democratic Party completely co-opted that movement, completely took over that movement, because they said you have to resist Trump, the person, which meant the best and practical way to do it is to get rid of Trump by electing the Democrats. And this very profound activist movement that began as soon as Trump was elected in 2016 simply became a spectator sport where people were cheering on the Democratic Party as it tried to impeach Trump, tried to do lobbying, used all of its nonprofit organizations with single-issue protests, which were completely meaningless. So all of this activism in resistance ended up as being simply a tail to the kite of the Democratic Party. And as we've said, as all of the speakers have said, the problem isn't just Trump. The problem is the capitalist system. And the ruling class parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, are not an opposition to capitalism. They are the voice of capitalism. We get a choice every 2 or 4 years to vote for a variety of carefully vetted imperialist politicians and think that that's democracy.
These are socialists.
You get to vote every 2 or 4 years for who's going to oppress you for the next 2 or 4 years. That's the beauty of American democracy, is there's this variety. Well, it's not enough. You're not going to win over working class people. North Carolina voted for Trump. Well, go to Asheville, North Carolina. So many families have been destroyed by Hurricane Helene and then Milton.
I'm seeing the same
so many people are living, they don't have flood insurance, they don't have wind insurance, they can't rebuild their homes.
The far left.
What did the Biden-Harris administration actually do
You
for
haven't
them?
been watching the far left.
Nothing.
I promise you.
Instead, it sent 2,000-pound bombs to destroy the people in Gaza. Sent $60 billion for nonstop war against Russia, using Ukrainians as just part of a meat grinder war. Like the people in North Carolina, when they hear Biden and Harris say, oh, Trump is going to undermine NATO, the people in Asheville, North Carolina, who cannot put their homes back together again, don't care about that. That's not appealing. This imperialist messaging from the Democrats completely antagonizes and alienates big sections of the proletariat, big sections of the working class, big sections of young people. That's why there's 14 million fewer votes for the Democrats this time than there was in 2020. It's not because the country has become so right-wing. The political realignment is not because the masses of people have become revanchist, reactionary, terrible, racist, misogynist pigs. Many are, but that's not the majority. That's not the real problem.
Isn't that funny?
The problem is the ruling class has become so far right. The ruling class has become so far right. And their real goal, and Trump's real goal, and the Democrats won't tell the truth about this, is Trump and the billionaires who are coming in intend to roll back every gain from the 60s, the civil rights movement, the women's movement,
God,
and
I
before
hope
that,
so.
the labor movement. They want to carry out a counter-revolution
They
and
won't,
go
but
back
I
to
wish they
naked,
did.
pure capitalism where only
Boom!
capital matters, where only
Boom!
profit matters, and they want to get rid of all of these reforms. They never wanted them in the first place, and now they think that they can do it. The Democrats are not going to stand up and fight. So we're in an epic battle, brothers and sisters.
Not Democrats.
It's epic. What happens now, what we do now, will make all the difference. If Trump goes unopposed, if the Trump program goes through, if the civil rights movement reforms are rolled back, if regulations that are trying to mitigate climate catastrophe are ended, and that's their goal, if they're going to put people, gay people, women, trans people into a closet, demonize them, criminalize them, if we do nothing, that's what's going to happen. It's that simple. Let's not pretend this isn't serious. This is very serious. We either fight and fight effectively and win, or this is going to be a terrible counter-revolutionary assault against the people. We have to be serious, not glib. We have to be super serious. But we cannot simply be activists. We learned the lesson of 2016. If you're just an activist, you just want to be against Trump, you just want to protest against Trump, you're going to end up as a tail to the kite of the Democratic Party. So we have to build organizations everywhere, in every city, every town, like the immigrant sisters and brothers are doing, committees. I'm in the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Thousands of people have applied to join our party in the last 3 days. I'm literally thousands. Literally thousands. But
This is their do or die
and we
moment,
want thousands
guys.
more to join. But my point is, people are looking for organization now. They might look to PSL, but they're going to look to other organizations.
Oh my
We have December 12th
God.
comrades here. We have Damian here. We have so many
And the
people's
conservatives have
organizations.
no
You don't have
idea
to
this
wait
is
for
happening.
somebody to call you and say, do you want
No
to join a group?
idea.
Form an organization.
Trump
You can do it in
winning
every,
is helping
like Eugene said,
them.
you know, undocumented friends, form a group, form a collective. We can build this movement if all of us become self-acting people. And if we understand that we're not simply going to be activists, we're going to be in the streets and organizing, but we're going to provide a political program that can reach the people in Asheville, North Carolina. We're going to get a political program that can reach the people in the inner cities around the country. We're going to have a political program that can go to all of the so-called Rust Belt cities that have been hollowed out and decimated by the policies of the Republicans and the Democrats. We have to have a program to reach the masses. We can't stop the ruling class, but the organized people can stop the ruling class. That's our job. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I wish, Alaska John. Thank you for the
Thank
sentiment.
you again to our amazing panel. Let's have one more
All
round
right,
of
I think we're
applause
going to
for
do
all
a
the
Q&A,
speakers.
guys. We got a lot to talk about already, but the Q&A is always the best part, so we're going to pay close attention, okay?
So
This
we
is their do or
want to
die
hear
moment,
from all
and
of
they
you
know
now.
it.
And of course, we wish we
And
could hear from
that's
every single person.
dangerous.
And this
Everyone
is just the
understands
beginning of
that,
the
right?
conversation. So
This
we
is
will take a few
dangerous.
comments and questions. I have two comrades, one on each side of the room, who will
Comrade.
bring you a mic. But let me first just see hands of those who would like to make a question or a comment. And I'll ask so that we can have enough time for everybody that we keep them at 1 to 2 minutes. So let's start right here.
Is it okay if I hold it? Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Ria, and I'm with Damayan. We serve and organize Filipino migrant workers, including domestic workers and labor trafficking survivors. So we do not have to guess what will happen to the immigrant community during Trump's administration because we organized, during those times. So we experienced ICE raids in the workplace. We had community members who worked graveyard shifts in 7-Eleven and came out in handcuffs with chains tied to their waist. We had members who experienced ICE raids in their apartment buildings, their neighbors jumping from their apartment windows, or a community member who hid in their closet during the raid. We had community members who were picked up in Greyhound buses and detained upstate. We had members who worked and lived with their employer and would not go home because they were afraid to travel. We
Not
had labor
helpful,
trafficking
Wurzel,
survivor
but thank
members
you.
who were
Good to see
trafficked by
you.
diplomats and being tracked for deportation because the USCIS denied their T visa applications. So of course we were scared, but if you're backed up against
Wait,
a wall, there's
is
no other
Wurzel
choice
rude
but to
on
fight back.
Socialism Saturday?
And then we started
He's in
getting
the
called
show.
brave, but we're also not brave. We just did what we had to do to protect our families and our communities. So we had plenty of lessons during that time. One is that organizing literally saves lives. I have sat in immigration court hearings and watched our member challenge his deportation case in front of a judge and ICE attorney. We have been on the phone with a worker as he ran and hid from ICE. We have been on the phone with a worker while they were being detained upstate. We have been outside of a member's apartment as they barricaded their door during a police raid in their building. Our members were able to escape ICE and police raids, stand in front of immigration judges, and win their trafficking cases because of the organizing that we did as a community. But at the same time, it's not enough to provide critical
Wow.
services. It has to be fused with educating, organizing, and mobilizing. We have to do political education, and that's why we're here. And we will be here until, this term, his term ends, and even after the next term,
07
after
Wurzel.
Trump. And we will be there too on January 20, Washington, D.C., standing with everyone and all of you.
By the way, Trump's mass
Thank you
deportations
so
better
much.
happen. It's going to piss these
I
people
saw
off.
another
It's going to be
hand on the
great.
side here.
If Trump doesn't follow through on mass deportations, I'm going to be so pissed.
Hi, thanks very much. I have a request more than anything. Given that everyone understands how the US runs and it's a false democracy as much of the world, can we reconsider the use of the term Middle East? Because we have to ask ourselves, Middle East of what? I think it would be
it
better
was
to refer it
an
to
admission of about
West
30
Asia
felonies,
or
yeah.
Swana or Levant. I think the idea we want to decentralize away from the historic seat of imperialist power, which is the UK. I think language matters in that regard. That was really it.
Thank you. All right, I have a hand right here.
Hi, my name is Brandon, and I was just wondering about keeping liberals who are now disillusioned with the failure that is the Democratic Party actually disillusioned with it and to break from it. I'm sure many of
Recruiting.
us have liberals in our lives who are disgusted with how Trump is still so prevalent and there's no institution that can counter him. How do we tell these people in our lives there is no hope for a Democratic Party and we have to constitute a new left organization for the working class?
Oh my God, they're
Thank you.
recruiting.
All right, let's take two more. I have 1 and 2.
Socialists take a bunch of questions up front and they answer them all at once. If you're wondering what's going on.
Hello. Well, good evening. I joined you guys to the Pamela. So,
And black.
I remember that we have a COVID lockdowns and for the past 6 months that we couldn't get the vaccine until the end of 2020,
What?
going into 2021. So we've been fighting against climate crisis over the decade. So I was wondering, are we going to be able to fight back in the next 4 years until his Trump terms ends in 2028?
This is live now. This is literally live.
This is just sorry. Okay, can I hold it? Okay, sorry. This is just like a more general question concerning organizing people to resist, and not just when our rights are being pushed back, but also against pre-existing laws, and create power that is not just within, or I guess relegated to the community, but rather based in economic structures and materialism. For example, New York State infamously has tailored laws that prevent
She's got good hair.
public servant and state employees,
It's a good
including
haircut,
city
man.
employees, for example, to strike. And so, given the efficiency
Socialists
of
love a good afro.
strikes historically, and labor strikes and economic strikes and tax withdrawal, or not withdrawal, but whatever, strikes, I guess, what are the necessary steps to be able to build a base and a network and a system people can fall back on while engaging and mobilizing for economic and labor strikes that are not temporary or until an agreement is met, but are effective in the long run?
Thank you. All right, thank you so much for these questions. I'm going to pass it back to our panelists. Please come on up and you can respond.
I feel like I'm getting set up, but that's all right. Listen, I appreciate all the questions, and some of the answers are already implied in the question. In terms of how do we talk to liberals, and I think just like that, right? I mean, it's the thing is people's consciousness is not linear, and people hold a lot of contradictory ideas in their head all the time. And it's been said many times that people tend to be convinced primarily not really by what you say to them, but things that happen to them. So repetition is key and critical.
True,
Consistency
Renan, thank you.
is key and critical. Because a lot of times you feel like you're the only voice in the room. You might in fact be the only voice in the room. But the fact that you're consistently that voice, when something happens, it's like, Brandon was telling me this whole time. He was right the whole time. The last year I was in college, was when the economic collapse happened in 2008. And I had a friend who I had been telling him for the past 3 years, capitalism, it's going to be a collapse. Something's going to happen. It's going to go down. I'm a Marxist, so you predict 9 out of 10 of the past economic collapses. Like, you're always saying it. But I remember he called me the day after Lehman Brothers went down. He was like, you were right. You were right the whole time. And, most of the time I'm thinking he's not listening to me. So you never really know who is actually, like, what people are taking from what you say. We have to use as many different arguments as we can. We have to, I think, help walk people through the history. I mean, the biggest example I would say, I think that we can lay out there, well, you could go back further than this, but let's just start in 1980. Starting then, they're telling people vote for the lesser of two evils. Back then, people were saying, well, Reagan was like a fascist. Now you got the Democrats saying, I'm just like Reagan. So if voting for lesser of two evils was actually going to stop the country from moving further to the right, how are we in one of the most right-wing scenarios of the past 40 years with a WWE Hall of Famer getting ready to go back into the presidency for the second time to try to do mass deportations, destroy overtime, destroy minimum wages, and all unions? Like, if voting for lesser of two evils actually worked, you're talking about Project 2025, what about Project 1994? What about the crime bill? What about welfare, so-called welfare reform? What about the original Clinton policy that said drive people into the desert and kill them when they cross the border? Like, this is what happened over the historical continuum of when they said the lesser of two evils was working. So just off the rip, we have to put the ball in the other court. Because it's always said to us, why are you not conforming? But what is the evidence that this confirmation of conforming to the Democratic Party is going to succeed? So I think we have to walk people through that on a regular basis. You know, I'll just say very quickly, I do think we will be able to fight back. And I think that if I didn't believe that, we wouldn't be here. And we have to believe that. People, you know, listen, we have to understand how we're being mentally manipulated by the liberal elite establishment.
Please. Thank you.
We're being manipulated. That nothing, it's like nothing bad has ever happened. You know, and that no one has ever accomplished anything in tough circumstances. And I think so much of that is designed to demoralize you, to make you feel they are your only saviors, and that you can only transfer your power to some other individual in the electoral system. But, you know, I mean, I made the issue with the abolitionists. I mean, I think about this all the time. I think about Harriet Tubman, who not only escaped slavery, but went back multiple times. And people would always say, why don't you just stay? You've done enough. You got 2 or 3 people out. And she never stopped going back. And then when the Civil War broke out, you think, okay, well, maybe, you know, take a rest. You freed hundreds of slaves. You know, now is the ball's in another court. She said, no, I'm going to go back to the South again so that I can show the black troops how to get into the plantations in South Carolina and free thousands of more slaves. So she wasn't ever going to stop running through swamps, hunted by dogs. So what excuse do we have? But they want you to think that nothing has ever happened under difficult circumstances, so that you give up your own power and you give it over to some billionaire-funded NGO or whoever who's supposed to be a savior. So let's remember, not only can we fight back, we have fought back against the greatest of all odds and defeated the most powerful of all enemies multiple times. The people united will never be defeated. And then I'll just close by saying this. This might not be the 100% the answer to your question, so if I misunderstood it, I apologize. But first and foremost, I think that's another sort of question where you almost answered the question, right? Like, this is the issue. Because the Taylor Law is one. There's many anti-union pieces. It's very difficult to go out on strike, to maintain, to survive. So when we see people organizing, we have to go and support them. We have to stand shoulder to shoulder. We have to help people eat. We have to make sure they can find a way to stay in their home if they have to stay beyond the rent payment and they're not getting paid the check. We have to fight against these laws in a real way and try to repeal them. But we have to create a dense network of individuals so that when anyone else goes into struggle, they know someone else is standing shoulder to shoulder with them, and that they're not going to have to worry about whether they're going to eat if they go out on strike, because we will build a soup kitchen. You know, we have to have that kind of mentality if we're going to succeed. But we have to understand it, and we have to put it in, and I think there's many different aspects to that, but I think it's a great point, and I think it's a critically important point, because the most powerful thing that we have is our labor. Capitalism 100% runs on the backs of all of us. There is nothing they can do. I mean, there's the famous saying, you know, if your boss doesn't show up to work, do you have to not work? But if all of us don't show up to work, can they make money? Exactly. So we have to put ourselves in a position where the types of struggles that we can wage at the point of production, as well as other parts in the street, can be as successful as possible. But I think, again, a lot of the solutions are already in the questions. So if we come together and put all our collective knowledge together, whatever the challenges are, we'll figure out the solution.
Claudia has something to say, but I want to say one thing first also about this question of how do we convince people who are liberals and who are basically thinking the best possible way to stop Trump is to vote for the Democrats. It seems practical. How do we change people's consciousness? If people are at home watching TV, their consciousness will not change. You know, if you sit home and watch TV or the internet or whatever, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to really be involved. You know, in the Egyptian revolution in 2011, Mubarak turned off the internet so people couldn't watch what was going on in Tahrir Square on Facebook. And so all these young people said, oh, I can't watch it. I have to actually go to the square in order to find out what's going on. And it became a massive event that toppled this dictatorship. So what's the point for us? We have to get people moving. When we say mobilize for January 20th at the White House, I mean in Washington, D.C. on day one of the Trump administration, it's not because we think a demonstration is going to change the situation. What's going to change the situation is a movement, and a movement that's conscious, as I said, and organized. But that won't happen if people are at home. We have to go into the streets right away to show that we have a fighting spirit, that we have mobilization, that we have this history, this rich history of people who didn't back down. So if you want to move your friends, tell them come with you to Washington, D.C. on January 20th. Not because that demonstration is going to change the world, but the movement is going to change the world, but it only happens when people are actually moving. The movement means moving, not sitting, watching, not being spectators, being active people. So that's why we have to build January 20th.
I just wanted to add a little bit in terms of the how. I think the how we're able to walk with people in deepening their consciousness and gaining class consciousness is important. I save all my anger, all my frustration, and all the curse words you could possibly think of for my class enemy, not my people. And our people have been conditioned heavily, violently, to aspire and protect ruling class interests. And so we need to walk with our people in a very loving, patient, and dedicated way. And breaking ties with our people are not going to get us to be stronger. So that means that we could engage in a political argument with our brother, with our sister, with our neighbor in terms of what they think, but let us not hit them over the head so hard that we break the bond. And then when that shift happens, we don't have a relationship with them. And then they go into cynicism, which is a thing. They go into isolation, which is a thing in capitalism. And in fact, capitalism thrives of depression, cynicism, isolation. And so we need to do our best to keep our folks, our working class people, despite of the many contradictions that they have, close. Very close. And we have to be that consciousness. And we need to utilize the most ordinary moments as teachable moments. Whether it is watching a movie, whether it is looking at the news together, whether it is reading newspaper articles together and kind of deciphering and decoding what that means, reading between the lines and the things that are not being said. But we cannot build a movement with building cliques of only like-minded people. We need to be out there within the working class, building the consciousness and confidence of people. And that means coming into contact, not only with liberal ideology, which is a virus, but the most regressive and retrograde type of ideologies that you could possibly think of. Patriarchy, transphobia, all of these things are embedded, unfortunately, in our working class people. And we have to have the patience to love our people enough to have the faith in our work and in them that they can be transformed. So I really wanted to say that. And I wanted to speak to just briefly also in terms of organizing. Organizing in a context of capitalism teaches us to make compartments out of struggle. You have union organizing here, you have immigrant rights here, you have LGBTQ rights here, you have women's rights here, you have anti-war work here. Everything is kind of compartmentalized. We don't live compartmentalized lives. Those people that are organizing as students are workers. And they are also parents. And they also live in marginalized communities. And so we need to figure out a way in which we build a sense of our class that is broader than that specific struggle that we're in. So if you're doing labor organizing, you need to speak to students. If you're doing student organizing, you need to speak to the folks that are doing tenant organizing in your community. If you are doing immigrant rights work, you need to speak to folks that are doing work around healthcare access. And so our concept of movement needs to be broad, so broad that it actually reflects the necessities of the working class.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think this is a perfect note for us to end on, but this ending
All right,
is
we're gonna do a
actually
debrief,
just
guys.
an invitation to continue. We have many tasks in front of us, not least organize, join an organization, form an organization. There's many organizations represented on the stage and also in the audience and with everyone online. There's ways you can meet people. And if you don't know where to start, and even if you do, come this Monday and every Monday to the People's Forum. It's packed just like this for our weekly volunteer meeting for the Shut It Down for Palestine movement, where we talk about all of these issues, we discuss them, and we organize ourselves to spread across the city and start changing people's consciousness on a local level. So
the
please
QR
come and
code.
join us Monday evenings,
Give me
6:30
the QR
p.m. if
code.
you are in the New York area.
Get out of the way, the QR code.
All right, and before we close, final thing. On the screen behind me, there is a QR code.
Get out of the
This will
way.
take you to the place where you can sign up for updates about the January 20 mobilization.
I'm
We
trying.
Fight Back. It also has a place for you to endorse, so get your organizations to endorse and stay in touch. We're going to start organizing from now, and we need everybody's
Move.
participation and support. So thank
Get
you,
out of
everybody.
the way.
Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in
Get
the
out
streets.
of the way, immigrant. Deport. Get out of the way. Get out of the... Jesus. Got it. Finally. Okay, hang on. Let me just make sure this QR code loads. Well, the biggest takeaway from this presentation is actually what's on the screen right there, which is that they are mobilizing for a mass action in Washington, D.C. on January 20th. Now, this should really come as no surprise, to be honest, because with the Party for Socialism and Liberation involved, listen, guys, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the reason I was asking about the Party for Socialism and Liberation funding earlier is because the Party for Socialism and Liberation has literally been involved with like every mass action in the last year. This has been part of their entire strategy. And by the way, I have the Party of Socialism and Liberation on video back from 2022 saying that they were going to use 2024 as a way to create a pre-revolutionary crisis in America. I'm the only one that's reported on that. No, Jack Posobiec can go and suck every dick. He can go do some legwork for himself. I'm not giving Jack Posobiec shit. Jack Posobiec would steal it and not credit where it came from because Jack Posobiec is not a real journalist. Jack Posobiec is a propagandist. So no, we are not on good terms. Joshua Lissick is cool. I like him. Jack Posobiec can go fuck himself. Anyway, guys, and by the way, if you guys really think that I'm ever giving anything to conservative media ever again, I don't know what channel you've been watching for years, but that will literally never, ever, 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 ever happen again. All of conservative media can go fuck themselves. I really don't care. Anyway, the biggest takeaway is that they are mobilizing for a mass action in Washington, D.C. on January 20th during the inauguration of Donald Trump. This is not the first mass action that the Party for Socialism and Liberation has organized in the last year. I do want to do some research specifically into the funding of the Party of Socialism and Liberation because, well, it is true, and it is 100% true, that the vast majority of these socialist groups are self-funded through membership dues, through voluntary donations, through publishing, through trainings, through media sales, etc., etc., etc. The Party for Socialism and Liberation has been doing a lot of stuff. The Party for Socialism and Liberation has done multiple mass protests in D.C. The Party for Socialism and Liberation has been all over the country during the college protests, like organizing on college campuses. Bro, I don't give a flying flip about the Congo. You've been spamming my chat with stuff about the Congo. I don't give a flying flip about the Congo. We're not talking about the fucking Congo. We are talking about the United States of America because that is where we are. We are in the United States of America. We are not in the Congo, okay? Yes, many people want it here, Jenna. And the thing is this. This is not an this is going to be a huge mass protest. And by the way, guys, this is not Antifa. Antifa's going to be there too. And there may be a tiny bit of overlap between Antifa and these people. But this is not Antifa, okay? This is almost entirely separate. I was trying to be nice to get someone to explain to me the difference. Well, Jenna, come back to our channel pretty much any day of the week. That we cover this all the time. So we've got the People's Forum, Palestinian Youth Movement, Answer Coalition. That's who Stu Studio said was funding them. I do want to look more into their funding because they're just doing a lot of stuff, and I wonder how they're getting that much money. U.S. Palestinian Community Network, Jill Stein, Claudia De La Cruz, Reverend Graylin Hay. There are probably going to be more activists added to this. Artists Against Apartheid, Bangladeshi Americans for Political Progress, Chris Smalls, Rowan Blanchard, Code Pink. We've covered Code Pink before. I don't really know a lot of these groups. So I expect that there's probably going to be more. No, bro. We are so far fucking beyond Saul Alinsky. It's not even funny. If you guys think this is Rules for Radicals, if you guys think this is Beautiful Trouble, you are so far behind us, it's not even funny. Like, you're working at like a kindergarten level right now. We're doing a college level master's course here. I don't mean to sound condescending, but people need to start facing reality. No amount of reading academic papers is going to educate you on what they're doing. No amount of reading Saul Alinsky's books is going to educate you on what they're doing. The only way to know what real socialists are doing in the real world is to listen to them directly. We go directly to the source. We go directly to the activists. We don't wait for interpretation. We don't listen to someone philosophizing about it. We listen to them directly. And people need to start doing this because one of the things that is very clear to me from watching this presentation is this is their now or never time, which is what I said was going to happen, by the way. Socialists never supported Kamala Harris. Every conservative influencer who told you that socialists and communists were supporting Kamala Harris threw you under the bus. They fucked you over. They fucked the conservative movement over. They screwed any chance of actually mounting any opposition. You have got to stop listening to people who tell you that Kamala Harris was a communist, that the Democrats are communist. If you didn't listen, if you can't ascertain from listening to this presentation that they fucking hate the Democrats, I just don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. Yes, everyone who called Kamala Harris a communist was shilling BS. Yes, it was all nonsense. These are the real socialists. These are the real communists. And they hate the Democrats. They hate the Republicans. But they're pretty thrilled that Trump is in, because Trump is going to allow them to recruit like never before. The Party for Socialism and Liberation said in this presentation they have gotten thousands of requests to join the Party for Socialism and Liberation in the last 3 days. Why would they? It doesn't benefit them to do so. So, I think we're about to start seeing a couple months of a lot of action and a lot of organizing. I think we are going to see a giant fuck-off shit show on Inauguration Day. And I think that the conservative right has no idea what's coming. And I think they have no idea who's pushing it. And I think that they will call them all Democrats when they're not. And I think that they will continue to mislead their audience. And every single time that conservative pundits and commentators mislead their audience, they allow these people all the runway they want to win. I hope people understand that. I'm not just saying that it's bullshit that they're calling Kamala Harris and the Democrats communists for my health. Believe me, I wish I never had to say it again. There was a conservative today on Twitter who said I should be deported for pointing out that Democrats are not communists. For real. I'm saying it over and over and over and over and over again because every single time a conservative commentator points at the Democratic Party and says, look, they're communists. what happens? People start looking at the Democratic Party. They're going, you communist! And then the real communists operate over here. Everyone's looking over here at the Democrats saying, communist, communist, communist. The real communists and socialists are operating over here. No one is looking at them. No one is paying attention to what they're doing because everyone's looking over here. Does everyone understand the problem? Does everyone understand the problem? So, it looks as though we've got an interesting couple of months ahead of us. An interesting inauguration. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll try to go to DC to cover it. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll just stay out of it and cover it from afar. That might actually be the better answer. And listen, I'm going to go through some questions. I do want to say, like, if people got yelled at, I'm sorry you got yelled at, bro. I really am. But, like, listen, guys, I need people to take this seriously. And when people come into this chat and they just start owning the libs and dunking on the libs, it means they're not listening and it means they're distracting everyone else in the chat. And it's just not acceptable. All right? We have real fucking problems. We have real problems. And this is only going to get worse. I promise you. So what I want to say, and I'm going to answer some questions in the chat, but if you are new to me and new to my work, the very best place to start is by going to my Substack, and I'm going to show you exactly where to go. Oh, yeah, bro, they've been teaching this to your kids since your kids were 5 years old. Yeah. So you go to carlin.substack.com. I'm going to give you the link. What you need to do is go to the How to Speak Socialist section. Click on that. And then click right at the top of the How to Speak Socialist section and watch this presentation. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Everyone who is new needs to watch this presentation. It's about 4 hours long. I know it's really long. But what this is going to do... Oh, shit. Did I put the wrong thing? I think I put the wrong thing. Hang on. Trying again. There we go. What this presentation is this is a 4-hour class where I walk you through the very best clips that I have from watching socialist trainings for like 3 years and clipping them and making them publicly available on the internet and stuff like that. If you are new to watching socialism with me, or if you're relatively, like, you're still kind of learning it, you're still kind of confused by it, you think it's word salad, watch this presentation. This is your crash course into what's going on. I'm working on a book about this. I am working on launching more live classes, but that's going to wait until after my vacation that I'm going on starting tomorrow, okay? So while I am on vacation starting tomorrow, I need everyone, and maybe I'll just replay the class for Socialism Saturday. That might be actually what I do. There might actually be a Socialism Saturday tomorrow. It's not going to be me live, but what I might do is just replay the class, like do a premiere of the How to Speak Socialist class on the channel at 6 p.m. I can just set it up in advance and you guys can come and watch it. How about that for an idea? It's not a live Socialism Saturday, but it's still a Socialism Saturday. But that's where you need to start off. And really, if you haven't seen it, please, 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 please watch it. There are more of these people than people think. They have been recruiting massively in the last year. Trump winning is only going to allow them to recruit more. Please take this seriously. Because I promise you, there are very few people on the internet who are actually taking this seriously. Most people on the right are focused on DEI training. Guess what? DEI training is about 5 levels down from what we're talking about right now. DEI training doesn't even matter. I know people might find that hard to believe, but if you get rid of all DEI training in the world, this still exists. And getting rid of DEI training has done nothing, and I mean nothing, to stop this. And this is the big problem. This is the big thing that's going to completely fuck us over. And that's why I yell when people come into my chat and they start distracting people and they start asking questions that, quite frankly, I've answered a million times, including in this presentation, and they don't pay attention to what's being said, because this is real. This is a big fucking problem. And we're about to see how big of a problem it is on Inauguration Day. Is everyone ready? No, I don't think the FBI is watching them. Not really. Not in any way. Let me just go through some questions real quick. My question is, what happens if they get their way of life and they don't like it? They have mechanisms to deal with that, okay? The way they run meetings, the way they deal in conflict. This is a conservative talking point. They have mechanisms with which to deal with conflict, guys. They have mechanisms with which to make improvements. It doesn't mean they're gonna change socialism, but like they are about 8,000 times ahead of conservatives. It's not even funny. No one is going to get arrested just for speaking up and asking a question in the socialist utopia. That's not going to happen. This is the most typical conservative talking point that I get. Styled hair, iPhone, manicured nails, bitching on YouTube, owns a house talking about how bad capitalism is. Guys, it says in the Communist Manifesto that socialists are allowed to engage in capitalism as long as they are trying to overthrow capitalism. So they're allowed to engage in capitalism based on their own philosophy. They live in a capitalist world. They have to survive in a capitalist world. As long as they are using their activism to try to overthrow capitalism, it's completely allowed. Please stop saying this because it makes us look really, really dumb and it makes us look like we don't understand our enemies. I understand if you're saying it because you're completely new to socialism and all you've listened to is bullshit conservative propaganda about it, but this is not a good dunk on the libs, okay? It makes you look dumb. It reinforces to them that you don't understand who they are because this is basic 101 level stuff. Wonder why the socialists wouldn't want Trump. The socialists did want Trump. Trump is going to allow them to recruit. If with capitalism we get hunger even when the richest country in the world, then what do we have on communism and socialism? We're gonna have starvation, honestly, is what it's gonna be, but that's not what they think. Welcome, Jay. I'm glad you made it through the whole thing. Now, Jay, in addition to this How to Speak Socialist presentation, another, okay, I'm going to give you a couple other resources, Jay, for anyone who's new here. So again, watch the How to Speak Socialist presentation, but also on my Substack, I have the Woke 101 series. And specifically look at the re-education series. That's going to help you out. And then on my Speak Socialist Substack, where I'm currently writing my next book, and this is a premium thing, you have to pay money for this, but you can find the Socialist Dictionary. And this is going to become a real live book at some point, hopefully before the end of the year. And that is going to have all the definitions of all the words for you. And so that is another resource that you can take advantage of. And that's available right now at speaksocialist.substack.com. Yeah, I appreciate that, Jenna. It's a lot. Well, I'm going to be gone next week, so you got plenty of time. Where do they get their money from? Most socialist groups are self-funded through publishing, through dues, through donations, and through event ticket sales, merch sales, stuff like that. Party for Socialism and Liberation, I'm putting a question mark on them because I think they might have other sources, but I don't know yet. Yes, they really do believe that capitalism has caused all problems. Capitalism is the only thing they care about, guys. Every single crazy thing in the world, from critical race theory to gender ideology to queering kids to abolish the police to climate change, climate justice to the campus protests to Palestine, everything goes back to capitalism. Every single thing. This is one of the things we talk about a lot on my channel. And I think that is all the questions that I have for right now. What everyone needs to do is learn as much as possible about the left. Learn how to, and by the way, guys, no one is going to like this answer that I'm about to give you. You all want something that you can go out and do. You want me to say, post on social media. You want me to say, run for school board. You want me to say something like, no, that's not the answer. And Kino, you need to hear this because you haven't been around in a while on the socialism streams, and I can tell that, so I'm going to give you some tough love. I love you, Kino, but you haven't been around for a while on the socialism streams. Here are the 3 most important things that everyone can do. And I'm going to give you nothing else except for these 3 things. And if you don't do these 3 things, then I don't believe you're serious about stopping them. You need to learn as much as you can about the far left. You can use my streams to do it if you want. You can use the resources that I've created for you. You can go somewhere else if you don't like me or you want to complain about my hair or you don't like my tone or you don't like my teaching style or whatever. You can go somewhere else. But you need to learn as much as you can about the far left. You need to learn how to explain it as simply and as clearly and as precisely in plain English as possible. That's really the toughest part. You need to be able to articulate what the far left is doing to your friends and family members and anyone else who will listen in a way that they can understand in plain English. Both of those things will take a minimum of months of learning and studying. This is like learning a foreign language. This is why I'm not giving you anything else to do. If you don't do these two things, there is no tactic that you can implement that will be effective. Nothing. And I've been in this game a long time. What I see people do is they go out and they throw shit at the wall. They're like, I'm doing something, guys. No, you're not. All you're doing is throwing shit at the wall that is not effective. And the far left just keeps on winning because the conservative right is out here throwing shit at the wall just because they want to feel like they're doing something. Do you guys know what it is? It's like you're the toddler in the kitchen helping mom cook dinner, and you think you're helping mom cook dinner when in fact you're just making a big old fucking mess, and mom's going to have to clean it up after dinner anyway, and you didn't actually accomplish anything. Now, that's okay for toddlers, but we are adults here. It's time to stop throwing shit at the wall. It's time to stop making a fucking mess. It's time to be strategic and pragmatic. You need to learn as much as you can about what these people are doing. You can access the massive archive of Socialism Saturday streams on my channel if you want. You can access the resources and training that I'm giving you on the Substack. You can access my book website. You can access any number of things to help you learn as much as you can. If you don't like me, go somewhere else. You need to learn how to explain it in plain English in a way that is accurate and clear to average people. And then you need to go out and you need to teach as many people as possible what's going on. And I don't care if this is something that you don't want to do. I don't care if this is something that you don't feel comfortable doing. You will feel more comfortable doing it once you sit your ass down and you learn as much as you can and you learn how to explain it. And sometimes, guys, we need to do things that we don't want to do. So that is what needs to happen. And don't worry about anything else. That's it. If people are unwilling to do those three things, there is nothing that I can do to help you. Nothing. Bro, I have asked you repeatedly to stop talking about the fucking Congo. I don't give a flying fuck about the fucking Congo. On my channel, you follow my rules. I don't think Peter Boghossian knows what the fuck is going on. I have no idea. I have no idea. And quite frankly, I don't care. I prefer people subscribing on Substack because it allows me to have a more predictable income. It also takes less money than YouTube does. If you want to subscribe on here, though, go right ahead. I'm not gonna argue. Like, wherever you want to do is fine. And of course, I appreciate all support of my work. I really do. Because I am 100% grassroots funded by you guys. If you guys don't pay me money because you like what I'm doing, then I don't make money, and that's just the way it goes. So if you want to support the work I'm doing, head over to the Substack, sign up for a membership, $8 a month, $80 a year. I would really appreciate it. As a reminder, you can also head over to the Unwoke Art Store. And right now in the Unwoke Art Store, because I'm going on a road trip starting tomorrow, I'm doing a special sale. If you order over $100 or more in merch, you get an automatic 15% off. That means everything in the store is on sale. We've got the Trump merch back again, including the golden Trump in honor of Trump's epic victory, so you can get some cool Trump merch for Christmas. We've also got wrapping paper. This was a big hit last year, so I'm bringing it back. We've got the Marxism is Evil yard sign. A lot of people have been appreciating that. We've got a poster. We've got magnets. We've got stickers. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, hats. We've got cool t-shirt designs, all that sort of stuff. You can find all that stuff in the Unwoke Art Store. And again, everything in the store is 15% off as long as you spend $100 or more. And, it's Christmas, so go get some gifts for your friends. Hi, Carlin. Enjoy your holiday wherever you're going. Enjoy knitting also. I will enjoy knitting, Rosalind. I actually was just winding my yarn to bring on my road trip, so I do appreciate the super chat. Guys, that's all I have. I have to go pack because tomorrow I'm getting on a jet plane and I'm going to California, and I'm going to go hang out with someone that I've never met before in person for a week, and we're going to drive from California to Texas, and nothing could go wrong with this plan. But do make sure you're following along. The best place to do it is actually on Twitter. Make sure you are following me on Twitter. We will be doing content from the road. I'm Dr. Carlin B on Twitter. We will be doing spaces from the road. I'm not going off the internet entirely, but make sure you guys are following along. And, I appreciate you guys allowing me this flexibility. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a nice little break. I need to blow off some steam. So, that's it. I'm going to go pack. That was a lot. It's going to be a rough couple months. Is everyone ready for it? Well, we'll get through it together. All right, guys. That's all I have for tonight. I'll set up that Socialism Saturday stream for tomorrow. So even though it won't be me presenting, we'll do the How to Speak. We'll do the 4-hour fucking masterclass. I will set you guys up with a 4-hour fucking Actually, maybe I should do that the next 2 weekends. We do part 1 this weekend. We do part 2 the next weekend. That might be what I do. Because it's in 2 parts. I don't have to edit it together that way. So that might be what we do. All right, guys. That's all I got. Stay out of trouble while I'm gone. I don't want to hear anyone talking about fucking Democrats being communists while I'm gone. I don't want to have to come back and start yelling at people. All right? Make good choices. I'll be watching. I never miss anything. All right, guys. We'll see you when I see you.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here? 3 months, May 17th. And what brought you here? That's difficult to answer. people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital. That's difficult to answer.